UFC Fight Night Denver, Namajunas versus Cortez just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Evan Elder versus Darius Flowers. Darius Flowers is garbage, probably the lowest level fighter in the UFC that we have right now. There may be some exceptions, but dude shouldn't be in the UFC. They kept him around. I get it, he's from the US, so he doesn't really need to have a regional career to get into the UFC, but dude's 12-8. He's awful. His only way of winning is by showboating and stuff like that, so I went with Evan Elder, and we got Evan Elder. I think this matchup actually wasn't on my prediction video because it got made short notice, but I did go with Evan Elder in the build-up because he's a much better fighter. And he eventually got an arm triangle in round 2. But again, Darius Flowers just... all of the showboating, none of the success. Showboats, tries to trick you into closing in and then he catches you, or tries to do some kind of showboating and then like throw a head kick or a bunch of kicks. At one point he was throwing loads of kicks at Evan Elder. And he did start the fight quite dangerous, but that only lasted so long, and as soon as he got reversed on the ground, there were a couple good reversals. Evan Elder ended up on top. Flowers ended up reversing a position, ended up on top after that, and then Evan Elder kind of shook him off the back. And then when he shook him off the back, he was punching him in the body on the ground. One of the most underrated techniques in MMA. Evan Elder gets it done by submission in round 2, and Darius Flowers, cut him from the UFC, man. Like, there's no point him being in the UFC. Sorry, he's 12-8. We can't have that record on the roster. I'm sorry. We move on. Josh Fremd versus Andre Petroski. I went with Andre Petroski because my take was that at least Petroski has the wrestling that's good. Even though both of them are awful and, you know, Petroski's very chinny, at least he has that wrestling that's really good. And that was the story of the fight. I mean, it really was. Andre Petroski getting takedowns and then Josh Fremd never getting back up once and just getting held down by Andre Petroski. Side control, half guard, whatever position it was, Andre Petroski had full control, was going for some submissions. I think at one point in round 2, he nearly had an arm triangle. That was my prediction, an arm triangle from Andre Petroski, but he ended up riding out a decision and just getting the takedown and not letting up on Josh Fremd for pretty much the entire fight. Josh Fremd was throwing little punches and maybe even out-hustling Petroski in moments, but the amount he was being chucked around just couldn't be ignored, and Petroski was getting submission attempts and close moves where he nearly had mount and stuff, but it was a very Andre Petroski performance, let's just say. We move on. Luana Santos versus Mariya Ragapova. Potentially a new candidate for hottest female fighter in the UFC. Now, I might make another tier list here. Okay? I may make another tier list. Potential candidate for hottest female fighter in the UFC. The cheeks were there. Cute face. But now let's talk about the fight. Mariya Ragapova just got smoked, really, right? Didn't she? I mean, she didn't get dropped early, but they thought she got dropped early because she got hit with a punch while she was on one leg. And Luana Santos just ended up on top position. Nearly had an arm triangle at one point, and eventually, while trying to escape that position, I believe, Mariya Ragapova ended up giving up her back. Luana Santos got the back, got the rear naked choke, won her debut, and won it impressively. So, and had a really good celebration for us as well. I'm a big fan of Luana Santos, if this is the woman I'm thinking of from tonight. But yeah, she's up there, guys. Okay. I remember when we were really in a drought in MMA where people were saying Rose was hot. There was dark times in women's MMA, guys. Well, we were starting to say, you know what, Nunes kind of. But now we've got Luana Santos is around. They're putting the others to shame. We move on. Up the card. Montel Jackson versus Damon Blackshear. I went with Damon Blackshear because he nearly beat Mario Batista, who I think is incredible. And this was the first fight I got wrong on the card. And I didn't pick Montel Jackson because, I don't know, he couldn't KO JP Buys for 15 minutes. Even when JP Buys took it on short notice. You know, the chinniest fighter in the UFC ever, JP Buys. Montel Jackson couldn't do it to any of them. Couldn't do it to Rani Yahya. Smokes Damon Blackshear in a round. I think he did TKO Yahya, but still. Not like this. 1-2 down the pipe. The Peyton Tabot combo, as they're now calling it. The Terrence McKinney special. At this point, if you're athletic, start a fight with 1-2 down the pipe. There's odds that your opponent is retarded and might go for a low kick in elbow range. There are odds of that. Step in, throw your 1-2, might as well start the fight with it. Might get a KO. Wicked KO by Montel Jackson. Sucks for them on Blackshear. I mean, the guy is given a tough fight to Farid Basharat. I mean, he had a real tough fight with Mario Batista that arguably he could have won. But Montel Jackson beats him in 18 seconds. So that is impressive from Montel Jackson, to say the least. Big win from him. Finally a big win, because the guy's been winning. He hasn't been losing fights. I think he lost a fight to Brett Johns, Welshman, if I'm not mistaken. He beat Julio Arce, beat JP Bays, beat Jesse Strader. I mean, he beat Rani Yaya, Julio Arce. So he's on a bit of a win streak. Yeah, he lost to Brett Johns. That was his loss. And that was a very close fight as well, by the way. But Brett Johns just kind of out-grappled him. So yeah, good stuff from Montel Jackson. Hopefully we'll see him more active. And hopefully we'll get to see another fight out of him this year as well. Because he fights once a year, at best. So we need to see him back in there again. And that's the only way he's ever going to get momentum and actually a ranked opponent at bantamweight. So let's see how it goes. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which was Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Fatima Kline. I went with Jasmine Jasudavicius, but I don't even know if I should really be taking credit for this prediction, because Fatima Kline's ADCC grappling background, supposed to be really good as a grappler. I knew she would be a lot smaller than Jasmine Jasudavicius, but my take was that Jasudavicius is going to keep this standing and she's going to win this fight on the feet against the grappling specialist. That's not how it went. Fatima Kline, couldn't get the takedowns, really. When she did, Jasmine Jasudavicius did a good job of reversing her in round 1. And then dominated the ground game, taking the back, taking dominant position, landing ground and pound. And Fatima Kline was actually doing her best work on the feet in the boxing, where she was catching Jasudavicius in many moments. But Jasudavicius just kept it going, kept the pressure going, won the third round, I believe. Maybe even lost it, I'm not even sure. But she won enough of the fight, got top position in certain moments, and kept it that way until the end of the round a lot of the time. Good job by her. We move on. Joshua Van versus Charles Johnson. I coped hard about this one because I'm a big fan of Joshua Van. So I coped pretty hard about this because Charles Johnson has never KO'd anyone. Now, Jimmy Flick got TKO'd, curled up in a ball after retiring from the sport. Jiu-jitsu guy, it is what it is. We've never seen him smoke a guy on the feet. Joshua Van is who he does it to. I felt bad watching this fight. Now, I honestly believed that Charles Johnson dominated the first round, 10-9. Van had moments at the end, but Johnson was just landing way too much early on, and Van's a very slow starter that has to be hit a lot because he's so small. Round 2, Johnson starts off good again, but Joshua Van, towards the end of round 2, he's starting to get Johnson, and we're suddenly seeing a bit of a shift of the tide, and it's starting to look like Van's going to pick this up in the third and maybe get a finish or win the third and win the fight. Early in the third, he gets put down bad and wobbled and put away. Nasty finish by Charles Johnson. I just found it really sad, and I'll tell you why. Joshua Van is a small man. Very, very small man. I don't know how tall he is. I think I can double check now. I'm not sure, but he's very, very small. Let me find out. Joshua Van. There he is. I think he's about 5'4". He's 5'5". I don't buy it. I don't think he is. I think he's a lot shorter. I think he's about 5'4" or 5'3". Maybe 5'4". Very small dude. 65 inches of reach. That's women's reach. Insane how small he is. But the sad part to me that I think we need to start addressing in the combat sports community is, in boxing, they have 5'4" guys boxing each other. In MMA, because of the weight cutting culture, Joshua Van, a small dude, has trained his whole life, or a large majority of his life. I'm going to make it to the UFC and I'm going to be in their lowest weight class for the small guys. And everyone in the division is like 5'8", 5'9". Which is small, but it's not smallest weight division in the entire sport type of small. It's small, but its average height around the world is about 5'8". And these guys at flyweight are 5'9", 5'8", big dudes looking 2 weight divisions above him. And I'm thinking, damn, the average height of a man is the lowest possible weight you can fight at in the UFC. And I know there's other shorter opponents like DJ and Pantoja, but they're grapplers. It sucks for Van because he's a striker. and he's worked his life away. And he's got to this, and he's still young, so he hasn't worked his life away yet, because he's still young. He could make something of himself against the right matchups, but I've got a feeling he's just going to run into another 5'9", 5'10", 5'8" guy, cutting down to flyweight, being anorexic, and they're just going to be problems for him, I think, moving forward. So you got to have a granite unbreakable chin if you're going to have Van's style of fighting, and he just got TKO'd. So I'm worried for Van moving forward. Lost a prospect badly for a schmuck no one gives a fuck about. No offense to Charles Johnson, but people don't. Same with Julian Erosa. We'll get to that in a second. We just losing prospects left, right, and center in Denver. That's all I know. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which was Abdul Razak-Alhassan versus Cody Brundage. Genuinely one of the most disgusting actions I've seen in the octagon. I think Cody Brundage is a pussy. Don't get me wrong. I think he's not built for this. I think he's not a real fighter. I don't think he has a fighter's mentality. I think he's terrified of getting punched, and that's not a good thing to be when you're in the sport of MMA. So I saw this going the way it did, and I thought that Abdul would KO him in the first round. Now, Abdul Razak-Alhassan, no joke, hit Cody Brundage in the back of the head. People are showing the weakest parts of the replay to show this, and the UFC did it as well. When Brundage first went for the takedown, they were maybe side of the head, and that's what they showed. And then the last few were off to the side of the head as well. But I'm telling you, there was about 12, 14 unanswered back of the head shots from Abdul Razak-Alhassan. You can go back and watch the fight yourself and look through it. He has installments of sequences of back of the head shots that he's going for on Brundage. Disgusting, cheat, filth, pussy for doing it. You're fighting Brundage. You don't need to hit him in the back of the head. Just win easily. What are you doing? But he genuinely attacked the back of the head of Brundage intentionally. I don't give a fuck. It's intentional. If Jan's knee over Aljo was intentional, then this is as well. He should have been DQ'd and cut from the sport. And so should Brundage as well. I'm not rooting for Brundage or sticking up for Brundage. I'm just saying it how it is. Brundage is a pussy. He's not built to be a fighter. We know that. But Abdul blatantly cheated in that fight and tried to hit him in the back of the head to get a finish. He should have been disqualified. He can go fuck himself, as far as I'm concerned. All that yapping in the build-up just to go out there and spam back of the head shots. Pussy. No wonder you're 6-6. Go home. You know what I mean? Should be cut from the sport. I didn't like it at all. And I'm seeing all of the comments like, oh my God, it was barely anything. Why is Brundage doing that? One of the most egregious cases of back of the head shots we've ever seen in the sport of MMA. Fact. Go back and watch it. Worst cheating offense maybe ever. He intentionally attacked the back of Brundage's head to get a TKO. Bitch. Pussy. Needs to cheat to beat Brundage. Bitch. That's all I'll say. We move on. Julian Erosa versus Christian Rodriguez. I went with Christian Rodriguez because his opponent was Julian Erosa. However, Julian Erosa has this really funny thing that he does. Okay, Julian Erosa wins, taps out Christian Rodriguez at the end of the first round with a guillotine. Could have maybe tried to ride it out, but 11 seconds left. He probably didn't know how much time was left, so he tapped. It was from full guard. It was from a body triangle in full guard as well. Rosa's that long and lanky for the division with his arms. So Julian Erosa has this really funny thing that he does. And we're going to laugh about Julian Erosa. First of all, they got scrappy on the feet early, and Erosa was breaking him. C-Rod had nothing for him when he wasn't larger than his opponent. That needs to be mentioned. C-Rod has come in a lot of his fights in his career, larger than his opponent, same size, or 5 pounds heavier because he missed weight. Wow, dude, all of a sudden you don't have a weight advantage and you get smoked. You get smoked by Julian Erosa because you're a bum and you needed the weight advantage. I've been saying it the whole time. I should have picked Erosa because of it, but Erosa is so shit. So he loses some fights to Teruto Ishihara. I know it's ages ago, but still, listen to the names I'm about to read you that have beaten Julian Erosa. First of all, Artem Lobov, Teruto Ishihara, Devontae Smith, Julio Arce, Grant Dawson. Who else has beaten him? Sungwoo Choi beat him as well. Who else? Alex Caceres got a win over Julian Erosa. Steven Peterson nearly got a win over Julian Erosa in a very close war of a decision. But not But don't you guys worry about Erosa when he's facing off against Sean Woodson, who he beats and submits and breaks in the fight. Beats, submits, and breaks. Charles Jourdain, who he breaks in the fight and finishes him. Nate Landwehr, who he TKO'd in the first round. Dawodu, he beat as well, very convincingly. Lost to Fernando Padilla, though. This guy might have one of the most unpredictable careers we've ever seen. Just beat C-Rod. I'm okay with it. I don't like C-Rod. He missed weight, ruined prospects because of it, because he's unprofessional. Now he's up in a weight class he belongs in. All of a sudden, someone's too big for him, and they just walk him down and beat the fuck out of him and sub him. So, sucks for C-Rod. Karma, as far as I'm concerned. I should have bet on it. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which was Gabriel Bonfim versus Ange Loosa. Now, I thought this was an awful performance from Ange Loosa. I picked Gabriel Bonfim to win. I thought he would get it done by submission. In no way did I think that I'd be saying that Gabriel Bonfim has won a fight because of conditioning and cardio in the later rounds. But that's basically what happened. I thought he won every round. I know that in moments in the first, Ange Loosa had dominant grappling position, but Gabriel Bonfim landed a bunch of knees to the body in that round, some good elbows in close, so I thought that maybe he had done more damage than Loosa in that round. I definitely think so. 2 and 3, same thing. But Ange Loosa, he needs to work on a part of his game. And I'm going to tell him what part of the game that is to work on. And it's very, very important to work on this part of the game. Basically, yeah, when you throw a punch at someone in MMA, it should have a chance at causing damage. I know, crazy idea, but something he needs to work on, because he was just basically defensively responsible for 15 minutes, didn't throw anything with conviction, and just lazily threw 1-2s whilst getting kneed in the body, punched to the body, uppercutted, and left hooked. And that was it. And then Bonfim would get a takedown now and again towards the end of the round. I mean, it really was just an embarrassing performance from Loosa, but sloppy fight. Don't know if Bonfim deserves a bonus like he's asking for, but he won the fight, so good for him. We move on. Up the card, Drew Dober versus Gene Silva. Gene Silva's going to be a world champion and a conqueror of worlds. Allegedly, Dober landed more strikes than him, which I don't know if I believe, but maybe. This guy's insane. Taking clean shots off Dober, eating him, upper weight class, short notice. He's got the power to put away Dober. I know he didn't put him away, but he wobbled him and hurt him and had him hurt in moments and had him dropped in moments, even though they never gave him an official knockdown. The sport's a joke. I don't know who the 2 losses are on Gene Silva's record, but we need to find them because they're future champs as well. Obviously. This guy is insane. Insane levels of performance. The fighting nerds might be on their way to becoming a real powerhouse in MMA in terms of gyms. Because every time I see a fighter from there, I'm like, this is going to be fun. They're going to have a wild style of all power and danger. So I'm really enjoying their fight style at that gym. I think they also have the other guy that was... I can't remember his name. He did like a scissor sweep in his last fight. I was touting his praise before he even got to the UFC, and now I can't even remember his name. Marcelo or something like that. Mauricio, some shit like that. Either way, Gene Silva, nasty performance. Round 1, they're both going at it. They're both going for stuff. Gene Silva wins the round very clearly, though. He lands the better shots on Dober, but Dober's eating them well. Very well. Gets a cut on his eye. Not the bad one, though, that we'll talk about in a second. Round 2, Dober's doing a bit better. He actually is starting to catch Gene Silva as Gene Silva's like mocking him and trying to taunt him and talk to his corner. Dober's just striking whenever he does that. And going to the body really well in this fight as well. But Gene Silva did not lose power on short notice, upper weight class, at altitude, when Dober trains at elevation. Silva did not lose power for a second. For a second, he did not lose power. So, insane stuff from Gene Silva. Crazy performance. Hurt Dober at the end of the second round, but Dober ate all of them. Somehow he eats them. And then round 3, he actually cut Dober with an elbow. And as soon as I saw the cut, I was like, the fight's over. I didn't even wait and see if the doctor was going to call it. The fight was over as soon as you saw that cut. Eyebrow hanging off of Drew Dober. And then Dober pulls off. Gene Silva, what a goat. Looking forward to what's next for him. But Drew Dober baited the UFC. He's lingering around in the background. sad looking, and everyone's sort of glancing over at him like, oh God, he's going to retire. And he just wants to shout out the Denver crowd because he's from there. So, based Drew Dober tricks the UFC into giving him a sympathy post-fight speech despite losing because they think he's retiring in Denver, and he just wants to get a shout out to the crowd anyway. We move on. Up the card, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Muslim Salikhov. I actually went with Santiago Ponzinibbio. I see a lot of people screaming robbery. Because Santiago Ponzinibbio got takedowns that did nothing, and Muslim Salikhov landed the better shots and more of them. Now, that would be the Strickland-Duplessis situation, except Strickland didn't land the better shots. He just landed more of them. So it's, again, really funny how people pick and choose when they want to count takedowns. I bet you they weren't even looking in the second round and just went, Ponzinibbio ended up on top, give him the round. Round 3, similar situation. Ponzinibbio gets a takedown. They just give him the round. But as a matter of fact, Ponzinibbio wasn't landing good shots throughout the fight. Was whiffing on the majority of what he was throwing. Muslim Salikhov wasn't much better, but he was landing a lot more clean than Santiago Ponzinibbio, who, and I'll say this again, fought a 40-year-old man at altitude, who is a single shot fighter, and he went single shot for single shot with him. Retarded, Down syndrome, I didn't predict that. You know what I mean? We need to know the IQ of these fighters. I'll have an 100% prediction rate, I promise. I need to know if they're Down syndrome and gonna take the path of most resistance, which is what Ponzinibbio did. He went single shot for single shot with Muslim Salikhov at altitude when Salikhov is 40 years old. I know Ponzinibbio's not that much younger, but still. 40 at altitude, single shot fighter. Ponzinibbio's fainting at range against him. Get on him, get in the clinch, throw some body shots and knees. The fuck are you doing, man? Insane. Ponzinibbio didn't want to win. He wanted to win whilst not being finished, and it costed him a close decision. I had Muslim Salikhov winning anyway. I thought he won the first and the third. So yeah, we move on. Up the card, Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. I went with Rose Namajunas. I said she would score Tracy Cortez in the fight for the distance. She did, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe round 5, Tracy Cortez did okay. But again, this was just another shit main event. I mean, the last 2 fights on the card really did put a bad mood on things because it was just like, okay, you know, awful, trash, 1 knockdown. Other than that, single-digit strikes landed. 12 to Cortez in round 4, 11 to Rose. Rose got a takedown, had the back, landed the better shots. I gave her that round. Rose actually looks like she won the 5th round here as well. I just thought Cortez was doing something. Wow, one judge gave Cortez 2 of the rounds. 4 and 5. That's kind of insane. Eric Colin gave Tracy Cortez 2 rounds there. It's interesting. I thought Rose could have won all of them. But she's hot. Or is she? Because we found out in the middle of the fight, she's wearing fake eyelashes. Like, that's what I want to get into. Knockdown from Rose. Shitty fight. Rose with good entries on takedown. She did look good, to be fair to her. She looked improved, and she looked like a real contender in the division. And Cortez was shit and had nothing and landed now and again, but it wasn't good enough. Done about the fight. All I'm saying is this. Why the fuck have you got fake eyelashes on? Big fake eyelashes on your eyelids in the biggest fight of your life. What are your priorities in this sport, women? Because I didn't think that was even legal for them to have makeup. Then I found out it was. They can have makeup in the cage. What are your priorities? This is the question. Tracy Cortez stepped up for the biggest fight of her life. Oh my God, I'd made ultimate sacrifice by cutting off a bit of my hair. I still have all my hair and long hair, but I trimmed a bit off the end. Let me make sure I hold it while I'm on the scale so people know how badass I am. Wow, she's so badass. She's wearing fake... She took the time to have fake large eyelashes installed onto her for her fight with Rose. And in the middle of the fight, Rose punched one of them off. It's actually on the knockdown that Rose got, I believe. Or maybe like shortly afterwards, in the first round anyway. She knocked a fake eyelash off of Tracy Cortez and sent it flying. Where are your priorities? You're in the back, you're getting your hands wrapped, and someone's installing large fake eyelashes on you. Your priority is not to be a fighter, a good fighter, or the best fighter. Your priority is to make it to the UFC while being a reasonably hot woman and taking the free followers and social media influence that comes with it. And maybe, who knows, if all goes wrong, ditch and pull out a career in OnlyFans. Like, what are we doing? Is the UFC octagon for women's MMA fighters a casting couch now? Is that really what we're doing? Like, it was funny, and she is hot, and I'd appreciate hotter females in the cage than uglier ones, because I ain't watching for the fighting anyway. No one is. But that really did, like, hit home. Like, wow, they don't want to be the best fighters in the world. You care more about how your eyelashes look than winning a fight. Imagine that in a... You know how you see fighters get a little bit of hair in their eye, and they're like, fuck, get it out, it's putting me off. You know what I mean? Rosa's shaved her head bald. At least you've got to give her credit for that, even though it was by Pat Barry's commands, and also so was the you should wear dungarees. He's trying to make her look like a fucking rugrat by the end of it. He'll have his way. She will look like a 12-year-old boy someday if Pat Barry gets his own way. But still, I'm thinking, like, what the fuck are we doing here? Fake eyelashes. Fighters get annoyed at the slightest things in the middle of fights. You've got massive eyelashes on. In a sport where vision is key. Reaction time is key. Like, honestly, dude, what are we doing? It's such a joke. Why are you main eventing that? Fucking hell. Just shit up the fucking card. The whole card was good as well. And then we just sit through that shit for 5 rounds, man. And the crowd's cheering. Because Cortez pointed at the ground in the 5th. And did nothing afterwards. Fucking hell. I think I went even on picks. It is what it is. It's a fluke-based sport. I don't really care. See you later. Goodbye. Good card, though. Really good card. Really fun to watch. Good moments. Controversial moments. Main event just shit the fucking bed. And so did the co-main, though. So it wasn't the best. See you later. Goodbye.